I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction. We're listening to Dr. Robert Simpson talk about his life in of addiction and life after. And so you found out why you were doing what you were doing, and it felt right again.
It did. It did. I mean, and it was so basic. And I started holding groups about smoking cessation, but it wasn't really about smoking cessation. It was really about, you know, harm reduction, actually, of various sorts. And I loved it. And these guys were so responsive and so grateful, and it was just, you know, it just opened my heart back up, and I had so much fun with the addiction stuff that I thought, okay, this has been a life-transforming experience, and the universe is telling me that you got to do this. And so I did. I stayed there for a few years, and I loved it. And then I received a call from a fairly well-known treatment center, actually down in Provo, of all places. And the chap said, hello, you know, wondering if you'd be interested in coming down and interviewing to be our medical director. And I said, well, I think that would be splendid, but you probably need to know I've got a little bit of baggage. And he said, I already know that. I've done the background work on you already, and that's why I want you to come and work for me. And I did, and I'll be forever grateful for that opportunity. And I worked there for a couple of years, and I learned a tremendous amount. And that man is still a mentor in my life today, very dear fellow Gary Fisher.
Why do you think he was important, or was it important to Gary that you had the background that you had? Why did he want you to come, even though you had that background? I should say.
I guess I don't want to over-disclose, but Gary's got his own background.
Okay, it's relatable.
And so I think he loved the idea, you know, of having somebody who had actually really been through it.
Mm-hmm. Who could walk the walk and talk the talk. I mean, I think that's a lot of what us addicts who are now working in the world of recovery do, because we know both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can see through BS, and we can call it what it is.
Yeah. And I can see a patient who comes in my office who's, you know, he's clearly not right, and it's okay. I understand that too.
Yeah.
Because I only did that for a couple of decades. And so towards the harm reduction thing, I'm delighted to spend time with people who maybe are recovery curious and just figure out what can we do to make your life a little bit better today.
All right, well, let's get right into it. So what is harm reduction?
There's been a lot of debate about that, but I think the essential piece is that harm reduction is about treating people with substance use disorders with respect, dignity, because they're human beings. And the fact of the matter is that their substance use disorder is just a part of them. and that when we treat people that way without judgment, we build relationships. And once we've done that, we can start to work with people on just little things. Just, they may not be willing to stop, but, what can we do? Can we vaccinate you for, hepatitis? Can we vaccinate you for HPV? Can we prevent you from winding up with an illness, sepsis, or whatever it may be? So that when that day comes, because it comes for every junkie, and I can use that word because I am one.
Yeah. When the day comes that you want to stop.
It happens for everybody, right? But most people don't know where to turn. But if you've spent time and built this relationship in an unconditional sort of way, they know where to go. And
so, just to make it obvious what we're talking about, harm reduction is the use of medicine, drugs, to help them through their addiction. And then the other side of that would be abstinence, which is nothing, right? That's basically the two camps in the recovery world. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think harm reduction goes beyond that. Mindy Vincent, for example, who runs the Harm Reduction Coalition in town and would be a super person for you to chat with. She actually has an IOP, an outpatient treatment for people who are using. Yeah, there's no other area in medicine where we would say to somebody, I can't treat you until you quit. A diabetic who comes in who still has, eating issues. There's not an endocrinologist in the world who would say, I'm not going to treat you until you start eating properly. Right? It'd be absurd.
Right.
But that's exactly what we do with addiction. And we're intervening too late. Harm reduction is about intervening when people, really aren't interested in stopping. But there are things we can do to improve their quality of life, to decrease their likelihood of having a bad outcome, either with a disease or with a violent episode or whatever it might be. And so that when that day comes, that they have a life that they can come back to. Getting people housed is an enormous problem, but that's harm reduction. Vaccinating people. Harm reduction.
Is there other countries or states that are really progressive on harm reduction?
Oh yes, like every other country on the planet.
Well,
other than the Philippines, I don't think they're so good.
Well, they try. But I know a lot of European countries, including Portugal and some of these countries that have had large epidemics of drug abuse, have taken a harm reduction approach and had dramatic progress.
Yeah, there's the piece about we're just going to treat people with dignity and respect and not judge. It's above our pay grade. But there's also that piece where if people are provided with safety measures, clean syringes, clean, safe places to go, and use those, and if they are overdosing, they can be resuscitated with naloxone.
But the other side would just say you're just enabling them. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, that's what they would say.
That is the argument, and the answer to that is, well, do you really think they're going to stop just because we don't provide these services? And the answer is no, they're not. And nor are people going to pick up clean needles and try heroin for the first time just because there's clean needles available.
Right. Touche.
Yeah. And even if you take the position, I mean, let's just say that we don't think these people are worthy of dignity. We don't think they're worthy of respect. We think they should be judged. Fiscally, the money that is saved through harm reduction is colossal. I mean, how many people you can provide clean equipment for, you can get them working with case managers, get them into treatment places that will accept people who are still using. That's a minimal expense compared to one episode of sepsis where somebody's in the intensive care unit for 20 days.
Mm-hmm. Or filling up your jails and incarcerating with them.
And there's that.
We want to take a moment to remind everyone that if you or someone you know is struggling, there's help out there. You can find more information by going to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services website at www.samhsa.gov. or by messaging us here at Project Recovery on Facebook. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
A stranger with a gun came upon two teens taking pictures under a rising full moon. But violence is only the beginning of this story.
Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are, and this is a big one.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and I've spent my career talking about how lives are undone by violence. The Letter is a podcast about how lives are remade. Follow The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
I don't know that you've used this term, but to me it feels like it's a holistic approach to understanding all the dimensions of who a person is. Like you said, their addiction is one small aspect of who they are. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think the traditional view of treating addicts is very myopic. It's very unidimensional. It's treating them as if the only thing they are is the addiction. Right. And therefore, you don't see all the other aspects of the care that they need. There's mental health issues, housing. Like you said, a person who's living on the streets, think about the risk they are for infections and things like that. Yeah. And so by treating this holistic, by looking at the whole person, then when they're ready to say, yes, I want some help, I want to stop. When they have that, because we've learned over the year that we've done this show time and time again, that no matter how many resources are available to a person, no matter how many rock bottoms they hit, it's when they make that switch flips and they make that decision, like you had your epiphany and others. And if we're there ready and available, and they're healthy in those other ways, if their mental health issues are being addressed, if there are other physical health issues that are being addressed, they may be a diabetic as well. Is their diabetes being controlled?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then when they have this great opportunity to really get clean because all the other areas of their life are also being addressed.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And people are showing them love and respect and, making them human again.
Mm-hmm. And I love to go back to what Darlene said on a couple of podcasts ago, and it sticks in my head every day. I think about it. Recovery is not about making a bad person good. It's about making a sick person well. Mm-hmm. And that's so many times, they think just because of their addiction or where they're in life that they're a bad person. There's, I remember sitting outside before we got into the studio, and you were like, people couldn't believe that it happened to an emergency doctor, this educated man, right. And you told me, you said, hey, look, addiction doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't, and I mean, it was fascinating for me because we actually began our practice in Provo And, you know, it was soccer mums and working folk, you know, business executives, and, you know, the gamut. Anyone under the right circumstances.
I want you to talk a little bit about, you know, your card here. It says Medical Director at Utah Addiction Medicine. What is Utah Addiction Medicine?
So we're really a medical clinic that is devoted to looking after people with the disease of addiction. And some people, you know, want to quibble about whether it's a disease or not, and I think it matters not. It certainly looks like a disease and behaves like a disease, and our environment is set up specifically so that, I mean, the minute people walk in, they feel welcome, they feel human. People are kind. I mean, I can't tell you how incredibly fortunate I have been with the people who've just kind of come into my life and become part of Utah Addiction Medicine. And they're all just willing to accept people as they are. You know, and that's just such a crucial thing to get across. It's like, my opinion of you does not depend on whether you're high, or drunk, or sober. I want to take care of you either way.
Yeah, it's surprisingly powerful, I think, because until you've experienced somebody treating you with, you know, some people might call it unconditional love. We psychologists like to call it unconditional positive regard.
I love it, the Rogerians.
Yeah, and when you felt treated that way, it's elevating. It just makes all the difference in the world. And so I envy. It sounds like you just love that opportunity to share that with somebody who comes into your clinic.
Oh, there are days that, I mean, I just kind of have to go in my office and cry. You know, we have a culture where patients will just walk in and they'll say, I know something, I'm going to blow it up if I don't go somewhere, and I don't know where else to go right now. I need a safe place. And there isn't a person in that building who won't say, we're glad to see you. We're glad you're here. Let's get you a snack and a drink and sit down a minute. I know the doc's going to want to see you. And, you know, they know that they're not going to get a lecture about this or that. Or,
don't you know that's bad for you?
All right.
Haven't
we been through this before?
Sounds like you've heard that.
Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing things.
Well, it's fun, and you know, and I get to see that transformation in that beautiful, beautiful letter that you read. But the truth of the matter is, people need ongoing care. You know, a lot of people have mental issues that are significant to the point that if they're not managed carefully and in the context of their addiction, that they're going to wind up using again. Even people who don't. The likelihood statistically is that most of us are going to bugger it up at some point. And so we want to see you. If that happens, you're not fired. Get in here as fast as you can. Diseases come out of remission. The question is, how quickly can we get it back in remission? You know, let's stop talking about good and bad and this and that. You know, let's get your disease back in remission. And it's beautiful that you're here today and that you would trust us with that. Thank you. You know, because it's hard. You know, that shame is dense, and
oh yeah. I know a thing or two about that.
It's hard to own it, you know, and for someone to come in and just say, you know, Doc, I just got a little lost a couple of months back, and you know, I gotta stop, you know.
And it seems like a good stop right there. If you need more help, you can check them out at utahaddictionmed.com. Dr. Robert Simpson. Dr. Matt, any final thoughts?
Well, other than the fact that I think this is our first guest that's gone from carnival worker to medical director.
Yeah.
So I think that's a first, right?
Yeah. I think there was a lot of firsts on this one.
Yeah. But in addition, I mean, the thought that just keeps coming to my mind, Dr. Simpson, as you're talking, is that the harm reduction approach seems to epitomize one of the themes that we've developed on this show, which is that the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
And I think everything in the caring for others world, whether it's addiction medicine or, you know, mental health or wherever we're at, when we really, really connect with people, that's what inspires change. That's what inspires hope.
Yeah.
And like you said, hope is everything. And so I appreciate you coming on and sharing that message and making people aware that this is out there, that this is here in our community, and that it's available to people, and that you don't have to stop using to get help.
Yeah.
You can come in and get help as you are, whoever you are, whenever.
That's right.
I love that. And if you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did and give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. Help is out there. And if you have nowhere to go, you can always reach us on our social media platforms, and we'll point you in the right direction or at least give you some suggestions. Thank you, Dr. Robert Simpson. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening to our podcast. This is a KSL podcast, Project Recovery.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.